shadows dance differently when you're trapped in a narcissist's maze. One minute you're walking on solid ground. The next you're questioning if the floor was ever there at all. They don't just lie. They reconstruct reality itself, piece by piece, until your memories feel like dreams and your instincts sound like paranoia. You'll find yourself Googling the basics of human behavior at 3 a.m., wondering if you're the crazy one for expecting consistency, honesty, or basic respect. Welcome to the funhouse where every mirror shows you a different version of yourself, and none of them feel quite right. Yesterday's truth becomes today's delusion in their hands. They'll promise you the world on Monday, deny ever making promises on Tuesday, and by Wednesday, they'll have you apologizing for ever believing they would promise anything at all. Their reality bends like light through water, distorting everything it touches. You start keeping screenshots of conversations, recording dates and times, desperately trying to anchor yourself to some objective truth. But even with evidence in your hands, they'll make you doubt your own eyes. It's like trying to solve a puzzle while someone keeps changing the pieces when you're not looking. Think of your sanity as a perfectly tuned instrument. Now imagine someone subtly turning one string out of key each day, so slowly you barely notice. That's how they work. Small adjustments, tiny contradictions, minute inconsistencies that build up over time until your whole symphony sounds wrong, but you can't pinpoint exactly when or how it happened. They call it gaslighting, but that's too clean a word for the psychological arson they commit. They're not just dimming your lights, they're rewiring your entire electrical system until you forget what it feels like to see clearly. Your brain starts playing tricks on you, but they're not the tricks you think. That gut feeling that something's wrong, the one they keep telling you is just your anxiety, that's your survival instinct screaming through a gag. Your confusion isn't a symptom of your instability. It's a normal response to their chaos. They hand you a map where north changes direction every hour, then mock you for getting lost. Each time you adapt to their new reality, they shift the ground beneath your feet, leaving you in a constant state of emotional vertigo. Watch how masterfully they plant seeds of doubt in the garden of your mind. A casual comment here, a subtle criticism there, each one designed to bloom into full-blown insecurities. They're architects of uncertainty, building elaborate mazes in your psyche where every turn leads back to questioning yourself. The truly insidious part? They convince you that your growing paranoia, your constant self-doubt, your increasing isolation, these aren't symptoms of their abuse, but proof of your inherent brokenness. Time loses meaning in their presence. They can make a minute feel like an accusation, and an hour feel like an apology. They'll keep you waiting, keep you guessing, keep you hoping, while simultaneously making you feel guilty for having expectations at all. Your schedule becomes a suggestion. Your boundaries become negotiations, and your time becomes their property. They're not just stealing your present. They're making you doubt if you ever had control over your time to begin with. Like emotional magicians, they specialize in making your feelings disappear. That anger you felt yesterday? Poof. Now you're wondering if you overreacted. That hurt they caused last week? Abracadabra. Suddenly you're questioning if it even happened. They perform these tricks with such confidence that you start doubting your own emotional responses. Are you too sensitive? Too demanding? Too human? The questions pile up like bodies in your mind, each one a casualty of their psychological warfare. Beneath their carefully crafted mask lies a void that hungers for your sanity. They don't just want your energy, they want your grip on reality. Every time you catch them in a lie, they'll spin a story so complex that the truth becomes a distant memory. They'll create such elaborate dramas that you forget what you were questioning in the first place. It's like trying to hold on to smoke while they convince you that solid objects are just illusions. The true madness sets in when you realize that logic doesn't work here. You can't reason with someone who changes the rules of reason itself. Your evidence becomes their proof of your obsession. Your hurt becomes their victimhood. Your boundaries become their chains. They turn every attempt to understand them into proof of your instability. After all, only a crazy person would try to find sanity in their chaos, right? Your mental health becomes a currency they trade in, spending your stability like pocket change. They invest in your insecurities, capitalize on your confusion, and profit from your pain. The dividends they collect are paid in pieces of your sanity. And the most twisted part? When you finally break, when the weight of their contradictions finally cracks your foundation, they'll stand in the ruins of your mental health and ask, "Why are you so unstable?" Step into their universe for a moment, where they sit at the center like a dark sun, bending all reality around their perfect self-image. Problems don't stick to them. They slide right off and land on everyone else. Lost their job? The boss was jealous. Failed relationship? Their partner was too needy. Empty bank account? The world is rigged against them. They float through life in a bubble of blamelessness, while chaos follows in their wake. You'll watch them crash their car and somehow make it the tree's fault for being in their way. Look closely at their personal history. It's a museum of other people's failures. Every room displays a different villain who wronged them, carefully curated to hide any trace of their own responsibility. Their ex was crazy. Their parents were toxic. Their friends were disloyal. Their co-workers were incompetent. The world is full of enemies and obstacles, all conspiring to hold back their greatness. Meanwhile, they remain pristine in their own narrative, a misunderstood genius surrounded by inadequate supporting characters. Weather patterns change, seasons shift, and still they stand unmoved in their certainty of their own perfection. Criticism bounces off them like rain off a statue, while praise soaks in like water in desert sand. They craft stories where they're always the hero, never the villain, rewriting history with the skill of a propaganda minister. The more you try to point out their role in problems, the more they'll paint you as part of the vast conspiracy against them. It's exhausting watching someone play chess against the world while refusing to see they're knocking over their own pieces. Behind their eyes lies a fortress of self-delusion, so strong that reality itself can't breach its walls. They've built their entire identity on being right, being perfect, being blameless. To admit fault would be to crack the very foundation of who they think they are. So instead, they twist and turn, shapeshift and deny, project and deflect, doing whatever mental gymnastics necessary to maintain their spotless self-image. The world becomes their scapegoat, carrying the weight of all their sins while they walk free. Reality bends like rubber around their need to be faultless. Watch them spin tales of persecution when faced with simple consequences. A speeding ticket becomes a police officer's vendetta. A missed deadline transforms into a colleague's sabotage. A failed test mutates into a teacher's bias. Their stories grow more elaborate with each retelling, like a child's excuses on steroids. The mental energy they spend avoiding blame could power a small city. Through their eyes, criticism feels like betrayal, feedback sounds like attack, and suggestions for improvement taste like poison. They've convinced themselves that they're the finished product, perfect, complete, beyond growth or correction. Any hint that they might need to change triggers an immune response so fierce it could power a small nation. The world must change around them because they simply cannot be wrong. It's like watching someone play a video game where they've convinced themselves that dying means the game is broken, never that they need to improve their skills. Paint splashes differently when thrown against the canvas of their reality. Every mistake becomes someone else's sabotage. Every failure transforms into others' envy. Every shortcoming morphs into the world's unfairness. They're artists of avoidance, turning their disasters into other people's crimes with the skill of a master illusionist. You'll watch them set their own house on fire and somehow blame the flames for being too hot, the wood for being too flammable, the air for having too much oxygen. Between the lines of their stories runs a constant theme: their own perfection, carved in stone, while the world's flaws are written in endless chapters. They collect grievances like precious gems, polishing each one until it shines with the light of someone else's fault. Their mental vault is full of moments where the world failed them, while their own failures vanish like smoke in wind. It's a magic trick that would be impressive if it wasn't so damaging to everyone around them. Time warps in their presence as they drag you into endless arguments about how nothing is ever their fault. Minutes stretch into hours as they explain why the sky is wrong for being blue when they wanted it gray. They'll spend more energy avoiding responsibility than it would take to simply fix their mistakes. The mental gymnastics become so extreme that you start to wonder if gravity itself might be blamed for their next fall. The truly insidious part is how they make their delusions your problem. They're not just content being perfect in their own mind. They demand that you acknowledge their perfection too. Any suggestion otherwise becomes an act of war. Your perception must align with theirs, or you become another enemy in their growing list of people who just don't understand them. Hours dissolve into black holes of pointless arguments when you try to hold them accountable. They'll drag you into endless debates about basic reality, turning simple facts into philosophical questions that never reach resolution. The goal isn't to find truth. It's to exhaust you until you give up trying to make sense of anything. They don't win arguments. They outlast their opponent's sanity. Their self-image is a fortress built on quicksand, defended with the desperation of someone who knows, deep down, that one crack could bring the whole thing down. Every criticism becomes an existential threat. Every suggestion for improvement feels like an assassination attempt on their character. They'll burn down entire relationships just to avoid admitting they made a simple mistake. The world becomes increasingly hostile in their story because it has to. Their perfect self-image requires an imperfect world to explain their failures. Everyone else must be jealous, stupid, or evil for their narrative to hold together. And as they spiral deeper into their delusions of faultlessness, they don't just maintain their sanity, they sacrifice yours to protect it. Because in the end, accepting their own flaws would drive them insane, so they'll drive you insane first. Breaking free triggers their most vicious game. The moment you stop playing by their rules, they start writing a new story about you, one designed to destroy everything you've built. Your reputation becomes their new target, because if they can't control you directly, they'll control how the world sees you. They'll spread whispers like poison, turning old friends into distant strangers and mutual acquaintances into unwitting weapons. Their lies about you will seem ridiculous at first. The stories they tell won't match the person you know yourself to be, but they tell these tales with such conviction, such seemingly genuine concern, that even people who've known you for years might start to doubt. "I'm just worried about them," they'll say, while painting you as unstable, unhinged, or unreasonable. They turn their smear campaign into an act of charity. They're not attacking you. They're helping others understand your problems. Each social circle becomes a new battlefield where your absence lets their narrative grow unchecked. They'll contact your friends with fake concern, reach out to your family with worried messages, and connect with your colleagues to warn them about you. Your inbox fills with messages from confused friends, asking if you're okay, all because someone's been telling them you're not. The stories grow more elaborate with each telling, your alleged crimes multiplying like bacteria in a petri dish. Social media becomes their favorite weapon. Vague posts about toxic people and learning who your real friends are start appearing. They never name you directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they play the wounded victim, collecting sympathy while carefully crafting your villain story. Their followers eat up every word, never knowing they're being fed carefully crafted lies. You watch from a distance as your character is assassinated in perfectly filtered posts and carefully worded captions. The hardest part isn't the lies themselves. It's watching people believe them. People you trusted, people you thought knew you, start treating you differently. Some will check their phones around you, worried you might see their messages. Others will invite you to fewer events, not wanting to cause drama. The isolation they couldn't create while controlling you, they now achieve through other people's doubt. Your world shrinks not because of what you did, but because of what they said you did. Fighting back only seems to prove their point. Every attempt to defend yourself becomes evidence of your instability. Each time you try to tell your side, they use it as proof of your obsession with them. The truth becomes a trap. Speak it, and you look crazy. Stay silent, and their lies become your reality. They've rigged the game, so defending yourself only digs your grave deeper. Time reveals truth like sunrise clearing fog, but wading through the darkness tests every ounce of strength you have. Some days you'll want to scream your truth from rooftops. Other days you'll doubt yourself, wondering if staying quiet makes you complicit in your own character assassination. The temptation to engage, to prove yourself, to fight back, becomes almost overwhelming. But that's exactly what they want, to prove they can still make you dance to their tune.